For something so important, discussion on what to name the new state came fairly late in West Virginia's journey to statehood. Those living in Western Virginia began talk of breaking away as soon as Virginia seceded from the Union in late May 1861. A referendum 5 months later favored the break, but the proposed state still didn't have a name. In December of 1861, delegates working on a state constitution took on the challenge.
They had to have a name for the state, so it is the original statehood proposal in Wheeling was the proposed state of Kanawha.
Some delegates, especially those in the Kanawha Valley, argued in favor of Kanawha, but other parts of the state were not as enthused.
And the classic one is it's difficult to spell and pronounce. But there were other arguments like, well, we've already got a county named Kanawha and a river. Won't that be confusing?
Though many delegates insisted the name was unimportant, the debate centered on more than a half dozen wide-ranging options. At the West Virginia Capitol, I asked today's delegates the same question their predecessors faced 160 years ago. What would you name the state? And West Virginia was not among their options.
Oh, I would have chosen Vandalia. I would have voted for Vandalia. It's a distinct name. It would have separated West Virginia forever from our sister state of what we now refer to as East Virginia.
The delegate from Monongalia County said that you can't pronounce or spell Kanawha, so we shouldn't use that. But I disagree with him, and I think Kanawha would have been a great name.
In Monongalia County, that area was typically referred to as Augusta, and that's my great-mama's name, so I got to show some love to my great-mama and go with Augusta.
I'd have probably chose New Virginia.
What about New Virginia kind of speaks to you?
Well, it just kind of makes sense, you know. We were a new state. We already had a few other news at the time. Just seems like it would make a little bit of sense.
Many of today's delegates say they would have wanted a name to better separate us from Virginia. But in 1861, there was a desire to maintain some connections to the old state. Many delegates had strong family and business ties to the East, and others decided they wanted to maintain their share of Virginia's revolutionary history. But others harbored hostility and resentment to the East and wanted nothing to do with the old state.
Essentially, whether you thought the word Virginia should be included in the new state really reveals the split within the proposed new state over what is this new state going to look like?
Some of that sentiment can still be heard today.
You know, they think that we're close to Richmond, or they think that, you know, we're still part of Virginia, and there's a little bit of confusion. So I think maybe out of the list that you have here, maybe New Virginia would have been a nice way to go.
If I was a delegate back in 1861, I would absolutely have to go with West Virginia. That's what I'd have to go with.
I would have picked Best Virginia.
And what about that speaks to you?
I don't know, that's just how I feel when I think about it. I have lived in Virginia. I grew up in Virginia, so I'm very familiar with both states, and that's my determination.
Ultimately, a compromise was reached. On a vote of 30-14, West Virginia was the final choice. In the spring of 1863, President Abraham Lincoln declared that West Virginia would enter the Union on June 20th, becoming the 35th state in a nation still at war with itself. In Charleston, Will Vance, 13 News, working for you. Ultimately, a compromise was reached. On a vote of 30-14, West Virginia was the final choice. In the spring of 1863, President Abraham Lincoln declared West Virginia would enter the Union on June 20th, becoming the 35th state in a nation still at war with itself. For West Virginia Tonight, I'm Will Vance.